right, very well then. Let's get straight into our conversation starters this morning as we tailor our conversation around the earlier reviewed headlines on the newspapers. We're joined virtually from the nation's capital by Dr. Aliu Ilyas, a public affairs commentator and an economist. Hello, Doctor. Good morning. Can you hear me? Well, whilst I can see you, I'm hoping that the audio gets better. I'm happy that we have good visual connections this morning. We had earlier looked at more than a dozen newspapers, and predominantly in the news is a shocker that for the third time in 60 days, the NNPCL has decided to jack up the price of premium motor spirits, otherwise known as petrol. And many continue to ask, should the NNPC be a regulator or a player in the industry? What is the reason why we can't have fuel at affordable prices despite the coming on board of Dangote refinery? All right, Doctor, at this point, let's also give our viewers the privilege of listening to Alhaji Aliko Dangote himself, where he has largely blamed the marketers for disrupting the supply chain of PMS and is boasting of 500 million litres of reserve to be able to sustain the country without reliance on import. Let's take a listen to Dangote's comments and we'll come back to discuss even further.
We are producers. I have a refinery. I'm not in the business of retail. If I'm in the business of retail, then you hold me responsible. But what I'm saying is that the retailers should please come forward and pick. If they don't come forward and pick, what do you want me to do? There's nothing that I can do. So I am expecting either NNPC or the marketers to stop importing. They should come and collect. We have what they need. And, as they remove, I'll be pumping. I don't know whether you understand what it takes to keep 500 million liters inside our tank. It's costing me money. Every day, if I will be able to collect the naira, I can actually charge somebody 32% in interest. So right now, that's what I'm losing. And you are talking about 500 billion. We don't print money, but the issue is that if they come and collect, then you will not see any queues in the filling stations. We have what it takes for them to come and collect. We are not retailers. We also don't have trucks to send. We have a factory, we have where we can load. If they come and pick, they will go and distribute. And they've been doing that with importation. So if they have been doing that with the importation, if it's true they are doing 55 million, I see no reason why they won't come and collect and distribute.
Sorry.
Now, Doctor, having listened to Alhaji Aliko Dangote, he says this is clearly an issue of bias, citing the over-reliance on importation, saying that he even has a bigger capacity to supply the country. Do you think that with the naira for crude deal that Mr. President is also assessing, much of the comments of Dangote can be actualized in the coming weeks?
Right. I think this case is now beyond the Dangote and federal government. It is now a case of Dangote and marketers. And that's why it's an issue that Dangote must solve by itself. You look at what he said, I'm sure his communicator would have advised him because of the way he communicates now. From the point of view of his communication, he's much more self-serving. He said, yeah, I'm losing money. If I have that money in bank, at 32, I would have collected interest of 32%. He's not factoring those marketers into his decisions. That's what it simply means. Those marketers might be having issues of price, right? So if you are selling to them and they're not breaking even the price you are giving to them, they will stop patronizing you. They will go as far as any country in the world to make their own profit. So Dangote must also come to terms with those marketers, because the gap is not issue of federal government. You recall before, Dangote also said that he would have to talk to federal government, right, before he can know how much he will sell it to Nigeria. So I guess that is what is still the problem. Perhaps the price is given to those marketers are not what those marketers can afford. And trust every businessman, they are in business to make money. As he also wants to make money, and he's not happy that his fuel is lying down in his tank. So also the business people want to make money. So he should go to the marketers direct and talk to them. The government will not continue to buy from them. Then most downstream is not only NNPCL. We have other private sector in that area. So I think Dangote should go and settle with those marketers, because it's just two things: is that the price or the product challenge?
Now, the other three papers we looked at, the Daily Independent, the Matrix, This Day, we're talking about how we can achieve stability in the downstream sector And this naira for crude transaction policy, have you had the privilege of looking at the papers, and do you think it is quite sustainable as Mr. President envisions?
Well, I think it is sustainable because we have everything here. The payer is here, the collector and the buyer, so to say, is here. So it's just for us to agree and we pay naira for crude. But the question is that you must also know that we are paying naira in dollar value. I don't know if you get that right. We are also paying naira in dollar value. What simply means is that if dollar is 1,740, you are still paying one equivalent of 1,740 to a dollar in naira. But it the choice that is good because there will not be forex problem. We have challenge of forex supply side, so that would have reduced that. But for how it will help Dangote to actually sell cheap, I've not seen how. It only make it is to the benefit of the federal government and Nigerians, not to the benefit of Dangote in any way, and not to maybe Dangote would deny himself anything to really give Nigeria a succor. So what I just think is that let's start with that and let Nigeria make sure it is sustainable. But I think it's sustainable because CBN is involved and CBN will take charge of that. All they need to do is just have a dedicated unit for it that will handle that Dangote naira for crude.
Now, one of the other highlights is the fact that Afrexim Bank has been named as the settlement bank. You rightly said that it is a large determinant of what the value of the exchange rate is day on day. But owing to your knowledge of Afrexim Bank and its settlement capacity in this stead, are you telling us and Nigerians that indeed they are well and capable to handle this in terms of whatever settlements either the NNPCL or Dangote would need?
I only wonder why it is Afrexim Bank. I was thinking, in that case, we should have one local with global presence bank. Maybe most of them are now having global presence. You can use one of them and also use Afrexim Bank because it's as if you are still going global with this. You can do it local. Everything should be done local. So for me, I think it's possible, but don't let it be only Afrexim Bank because I don't think we have total control on Afrexim Bank. We use one local bank and also Afrexim Bank. For me, I think that would have worked. I don't know the logic behind why it is even Afrexim Bank in the first place, but I will canvass for a local bank that have global presence and Afrexim Bank.
Now, this tendency of Nigeria to always be benchmarked by global prices is one of my major worries again this morning. Because looking at it, the global price of crude is dropping at a time when the country Nigeria is jacking up the prompt price of PMS. Does this beat your imagination that we continue to keep our eyes on the global market despite having local and homegrown solutions with the coming on board of Dangote refinery?
Well, like you know, even in global competition, we do not have the will to compete globally. So if our quota is maybe 2,100 barrel per day, right? I'm not sure we have meet up to 1,700. No, I'm not sure we have meet up our quota. Let me use that language. So we are not a good global player. Even in global market, we are also disadvantaged. And that's what is actually happening. But the global price coming down will not even have effect in Nigeria because of the price of dollar. Price of dollar is a problem because a dollar is 1,740 compared to naira. So we cannot benefit from that until we have enough thing pushing out and we have a good forex, a balance of trade, a balance of payment, whereby we have a forex under control, not willing buyer, willing seller. That's when we can benefit. If not, the more we have increase in dollar value, the more we pay more for PMS.
Now, before we move on to other issues in the news, lastly on this issue of how to solve stability in our petrol supply chain, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun, has largely lauded this policy, and he says the projection is that Nigeria is on the right path for industrialization with this naira for crude deal. Do you agree with him, and why so?
Well, even before that statement, I think for us to have been having Dangote refinery and petrochemical, I think we're on the right trajectory already. The only thing we need to do is to manage Dangote very well, and that's the challenge we are having here. For Dangote, dealing with federal government seems to be very, very, very much easy compared to Dangote dealing with the marketers. And marketers are the major people that needs to be dealt with in this case, because uh, government are supposed to be only regulator and enabler for every business to survive. But in terms of the operationalization, Dangote need to also, because if he continue to store in his tank farm, he said he have 500 million barrel. If he doesn't really have anything doing well with the Nigerian marketers, he will continue to have over 1 billion in his tank farm and nobody will buy. So for me, I think it's the right thing. We are in the right direction, making sure that we do naira uh, for crude approach. I think that's fine, but he must also deal with the marketers, because federal government cannot force the marketers to buy from Dangote. Dangote can only get his product attractive by giving the marketers affordable price where they can also make profit, or maybe enhance his product if that is what they actually need. So he needs to deal with those people. And he has been in business for long. He knows what to do in cement. He knows how he managed to deal with his distributor. So he should try as well as much as possible to maybe reduce himself from everything federal government to also deal with the marketers.
Now, let's come to another conversation. It's an issue in the news that has lingered for all the while we've had the conversation here on the program, particularly when we talked about, fintechs versus commercial banks, and also examine the NIBBS system. In the last few weeks, I don't know if you've had the challenges many Nigerians are lamenting about in carrying out financial transactions. There have been IT glitches. Have you had any of such experiences?
100%. I've had a lot of businesses challenge in terms of transaction. I can tell you up to now, some want to establish payment is pretty difficult. In fact, for a particular bank, they're able to solve ordinary bank account, but corporate account is still difficult to really work with, and it brings a lot of hardship for Nigerians. Business has to do with trust. So when we are not able to pay as and when due, it becomes a problem, and it brings about trust deficit. I can tell you there's trust deficit between customers and bank now, and it's a big challenge. CBN must do something. I could also see FCCPC carpeted banks for inability to actually maintain that. Most banks overnight, they can solve this problem. And must you also upgrade at the same time? You could see that a particular bank did so, another one follows suit. You can do it in a gradual thing that will appear seamless to the customer. It's a serious issue that CBN must quickly intervene.
Now, on the severity of this issue, the FCCPC, in protecting customers, which is part of its core mandate, many are saying are not giving adequate compensations to customers who have either lost travel time or been outrightly unable to take care of health bills whilst this bank are having issues. In terms of some compensation, is there any way the FCCPC can find a common ground for some aggrieved customers to get some sort of compensation or remuneration for such infractions?
Well, from Save the Consumer, our own NGO, we have tried as much as possible to advocate on what we call service break. There's no perfect organization in this world. There will be service break someday. And when service break come, it could be a breach in services. When service break now come up, it's just three things. One, you have to acknowledge that, yes, we apologize, there's a break in service. Thereafter acknowledging, you have to move to the next level, which is compensation. People don't get the science of compensation very well. It does not cost an arm or a leg to compensate. You just need to maybe do an upgrade or of even a bank account. So if somebody is having ordinary bank account and he can only save maybe save and withdraw maybe 200,000, you can upgrade that person because of the service break. So there's a lot of things they can do, and that's why we advocate that you have to know how to manage your customer experience very well. You must be proactive. There could be a lot of compensation could be given to customers, and I think we deserve it at this point in time. They only need to go and think about what kind of compensation are they going to give to customers. It's just a simple thing that any bank can come by. They only need to put their thinking cap and compensate people. I think we deserve to be compensated with this level of breach. People have lost trust in business. People have lost travel time. I can tell you, someone who actually wants to make payment to our office, up to now, since about 5 days, she cannot even access her account. She will go to the bank and the bank will say, we are on it. Anytime soon it will be ready. Anytime soon it will be ready, and 3 days has gone and we have lost our business opportunity. So it's quite a sad one. I think they should be quick about it. And also, FCCPC, like their usual thing, I recall, they used to put up a sanction. Though there's an argument that the sanctions should come to the customers, but they said no. I recall I was with one of their head, it is Babátúndé Ìlúkẹ̀rà, on a TV show where I said every compensation should go to the customer. But he now argues that no, they will collect the compensation to the covers of the federal government. No problem, but these people need to be sanctioned so that it will be a deterrent for other people not to break the service without adequate considering the customers and the loss they could suffer with that occurrence.
Now, Doctor, on customer responsibility on the part of these banks, there's also been an issue with communication management. You go on X, you go on Facebook or on Instagram, you see speculations. Many say it's hackers. Some persons take screenshots of their bank accounts, and there's fluctuations in the figures. While some numbers go up, others numbers run down. Most of the times, these banks do not issue a public notice to address the speculations. Nigerians are left to run with whatever rumors they find online. In keeping with customer responsibility, what do you advise that banks do in times like this to build that trust which you've noted is largely deficit?
Right. I think there's what we call consumer rights, and we have about 8 of them. The first is right to information. That's the first thing they should do. And when we say right to information, I can tell you authoritatively, one of my person told me that her bank account is fluctuating. She has more, and they say she has less. As she went there, they said it will rectify soon. That's a big issue. So I think as our bank should start coming out clean, some will speculate that it is actually hackers. Some will say it's a service downtime. Why not come out and be direct and to straightforward to them? Nigeria just want the truth, and we want a timeline at which you can even under promise. Sometimes you don't tell people that you will solve tomorrow. You can tell it's a week, and people will have patience and be waiting. No, during that period, it happens. It becomes a delight. So I think the first thing we should do is that our consumers must be respected, which is right to information, right to choice. You must tell us what is actually happening, and that's why speculation goes viral, because one person will go to the social media and assume, because the major people that are supposed to communicate are not doing the right communication. And in this case, if they're not doing the right communication, I think CBN should come and do the right communication, because now it has gotten escalated. It is not a news again to any person, let alone CBN, to know that there's a particular challenge in the banking sector.
Now, moving away from this issue, another issue making headlines this morning, and let's refer to the Daily Times. On the Daily Times earlier, we saw a comment coming in from the Nigerian Shippers Council. I was quite amused that in the reshufflements, we didn't hear anything about the marine and blue economy, but the headline is talking about $2.5 billion lost for a lack of implementation of tracking notes over a period of 5 years under review. Now, Doctor, we talked about the need for our economy to be generating on all fronts. The creation of marine and blue economy. Now we see the Shippers Council talk about a 5-year period in which $2.5 billion has been lost for a non-implementation of tracking notes. Is the minister and the Shipping Council not supposed to find some synergy to block these short holes?
Right. I never expected reshufflement in 3 ministry, largely because they actually knew they are trying to get their foot. Know what it means to establish a system, and also to establish a ministry that will handle a new thing. And the ministries are Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy, Ministry of Mining, and Ministry of Steel Development. They are new, so and that should be a low-hanging fruit to generate employment from Mr. President, because if you see Marine and Blue Economy, they are, at least they can generate a lot of employment. If you look at mining is also doing well to an extent, because we now have mining corporation, and steel development is also new, so we expect them to do more. But in terms of tracking note, I think it must have been an ongoing crisis before the new minister actually came, because it's also have gone ahead before the new ministry, because you said 5 years, and it just came in barely 1 year, 1 month or so that they will have minister. So for me, I think it's just like a identical attitude on our agents, because we have NPA for long, and I should have been responsibility of the DG of NPA. So I think government must take charge of these little things that can actually generate a whole lot for us. So it's a gap, and I think we must be as quick as possible. And I'm happy that this newspaper actually bring it to the front burner, and that's part of why we appreciate print media and brokers, journalists, organization like yours that bring about such issues to the front burner, and there will be attention to it. I think going forward, there should be an attention to this gap that is ongoing.
Now, and then keeping with more issues, we have about a quarter of an hour to look at other issues in the news, and predominantly it's issues of income tax and electricity. We start with electricity. There has been another subtle hike in electricity tariffs, but predominantly the one making headlines is the blackout in the north. A lot of blames have been on vandalism of the 330 kVA lines on the Shiroro power line. But this morning, the Minister of Power, Chief Adebayo Adelabu, is calling for capital punishment for electricity vandals. The federal government is also promising 14 days in which they would fix the situation with blackouts in the north. Let's get your thoughts on these situations as it affects the power sector.
I tried to examine what is responsible for the current blackout, and it appeared that it's vandalism. But we've not been able to factor if it is by terrorists or by mere vandalists or by contractors that want to get business again in that same area. But be that as it may, I think we should go beyond this manual way of doing things. There should be a way those systems can be monitored in real time, that there will be a system that will monitor electricity line, especially those ones that are prone to vandalism. So I think that's number one. Number two is that we also have blackout in Bayelsa. So what is the factor that is causing blackout in Bayelsa? Is it the same vandal that are vandalizing all these cables? But for me, I think it's a lack of continuous maintenance on our part. Because if we have a grid, and that's why I want to agree with the Minister of Power, who said they will decentralize the grid management. Because if it's one-way thing, it's a serious problem. It's quite saddening that for close to 10 days now, the northern part has been suffering blackout. I was in Kaduna this last weekend, and I could see the level of the business loss that people are experiencing. You need to see how hotels have to use diesel all through. You need to see how business have to survive with this expensive fuel to power their agents. You need to see the level of hardship, and I can tell you it has reduced the income of a lot of businesses in that area, in that it has affected business operation in that area. But Nigeria must, like we always said is that energy security remain a fulcrum that every good or business-minded country must make sure they take serious. Now, you have the issue of hiking diesel, hiking even LPG, hiking PMS, even the CNG is getting a hike again because we buy it at 230 from a particular one, and NNPC itself is selling it at 380 and above. So that means we don't have hope that this energy will come down at any point in time. So for Adelabu, I think he should be much more proactive, because some of us even think the government will show him way out because of his inability to actually handle that sector very well. Perhaps maybe he's working behind that we are not seeing. The president is seeing most of Nigeria. So maybe that is okay. But generally, I think there is need to do more in that area for us to have a better energy security.
Well, Doctor, I must thank you for your time on the program this morning. We appreciate you for giving us your objective thoughts on issues in the news. We're wishing you the best of the rest of today.
Thank you for having me.
We have a special report on polio, and in a bid to eradicate polio in Nigeria, we'll look at that shortly. Our main topic of discussion later at 9 o'clock, away from income tax like we discussed with Dr. Aliu Ilyas, we'll be looking at the position of northern governors.